Okay, let me try this again without Fed posting. It's really, really challenging. Why don't you do live streams? Because I get arrested. I don't know why I don't do live. That's probably the truth of the matter. Well, that's all more reason to do live streams. Like every other statement is in Minecraft and after legal due process. Anyway, click links for Odyssey, Bit Chute, join the Telegram or support channel on Coffee, or the various other more anonymous links if you're into that. And as I know some of you are, which is all well and good. So this is just kind of an example. The articles of like people look at pop culture and they go, "What do you even deal with that pop culture for?" Because it's one facet of the crystal. It's one little piece of nonsense to helping yourself understand how these people express these beliefs. Because at this level, you're seeing these puppets, and then you have to extrapolate or interpolate back to the puppet masters to see why they pull the strings they pull. And it's interesting. And, to be fair, a lot of this pop culture stuff is so cringy, and I love cringe. I love secondhand embarrassment, that weird feeling of like, oh God, it's almost unbearable to see, these soy boys, what they get up to. Okay, so cancel culture. There's no system to stop cancel culture. Pretty much only the European social contract stopped it. Right now, nothing is going to stop this ship we're on. It's going to continue until the inevitable and logical conclusion. So make sure you have your white rice and liberty food for the liberty devices. Malicious civil war. It's like history just has a way of repeating. Diversity is our strength. Where in history has that been true? I know some of you are history buffs. There's some. The funny thing about people who make videos is you're always going to find someone more intelligent in the audience who's just simply too busy to make videos. So they can a lot of times they're helping behind the scenes, usually in a Telegram and emails and stuff like that. If diversity is our strength somewhere, like show me some examples where diversity has been our strength, and then show me some examples where it hasn't. So diversity's goal, in my opinion, was to destroy America, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, wherever white people hang out, wherever areas they made great, which is what you're seeing. You're seeing kind of the result of what the globalists intended. This is not negligent or reckless. This is intentional conduct. It would take, at this point, I think, a Christian nationalist, someone who is one inspirational dude at the prophet level, or an ethno-nationalist to collect people around a new focus. Let me say this next part, and give people something to, and I don't mean this in the wrong way, sacrifice for. And I realize how that sounds. That's not a threat. Everything after legal due process, which is tough to do because you can't use mainstream social media or the banks or most of the banks or crowdfunding. It would have to be done at the alt media level, which is possible to like Give, Send, Go and some Christian crowdfunding sites and Gab and Telegram. And yes, it's possible to get something going on like the alt media where you've got access to like 10% of the open marketplace of ideas, the new digital town square. There's a reason the left and the right in your government have not made social media protected by the First Amendment, which they could have easily done. There's a constitutional argument for it. It's quite easy to make. There's a reason the right wing hasn't pushed for that either, because it's, people, as a kid, people told me a long time ago, it's these grizzled old, I don't want to say hill guys, grizzled old people. I got to be careful of the YouTube algorithm. You can't even use any colloquialisms. Would say, it's the wings of the same bird, and I didn't understand that when I was younger, and now I do understand that it's you got to go to a different bird, sort of thing. So there's no solution to cancel culture except for, at this point, separation. People are very tribal. They were never meant to be forced at gunpoint to be together, which is literally what happened in America. If you want to go look at those old photos of those guys with, I don't know what they were. What's the World War II rifle? I don't know, the M1, the Garand, something. Literally at bayonet point to be forced together. Maybe, just maybe, the guys who had the 30-06s with the razor-sharp bayonets at the end of them, maybe those guys, the all power of the state, the National Guard, maybe the government was in the wrong by forcing people together literally at bayonet point. Just something to consider. The guys with the guns and the bayonets, they might have been the wrong ones. So, 50 odd years later, you get people who hate each other, and you force them together at gunpoint. And now the gun is a social media doxing and social pressure, but it just goes from a literal bayonet to a figurative, well, we can destroy your life by doxing you, getting you fired, having the banks get rid of you, this kind of thing. Cancel culture is going to build resentments against the ones using it and the puppet masters and the media and the academia who are pushing it. So eventually, people will admit that people with such different values should not be forced to live together. The useful idiots on CNN are talking about fixing the Constitution because it was written by probably the best minds of Europe. So now they want the best minds of Africa and Mexico to write it. Because of the system of political correctness, nobody can just be honest and explain why that is a bad idea. They'd be fired, doxxed, debanked, made homeless, and maybe even worse. If you see the path that we're on, you know that worse is on the horizon. It's happened before in history, and it's going to happen again. Guaranteed now, because there's nothing in place to stop it. Nothing. There's nothing in place to prevent tyranny of these corporations. We don't have a town square where reasonable men may discuss things. The town square is owned by a corporation. This is, I guess, a digital corporate town. And you don't have, what was that Upton Sinclair book? The Concrete Jungle or something? This is the digital jungle. Actually, it'd be kind of fun to rewrite that book. And if I could write. And you don't have free expression. Think how clever it was of them to do this sort of detrimental reliance concept. They created a platform where discourse is held, but we the people don't have rights to free expression there. A lot of people just assumed when it all got started that the stuff like MySpace or the boards before MySpace, they didn't take them seriously because it really wasn't until MySpace, if I remember correctly, that was really collected things, coalesced things, caused things to nucleate around this one center instead of all these separate little message boards. It's like the MySpace concept was you come to MySpace. And it's like, but then if they choose to ban you, you're banned from one central platform instead of a decentralized collection of individual MySpaces like it was kind of before with MySpace. And then obviously Facebook came along and that was the end of that. Well, I guess the next big push was probably Twitter. So they created these platforms where discourse is held, but we the people, we don't have rights to free expression there. And our government, Nancy Pelosi, worth $100 million plus, let it happen. No, you don't get $120 million, $150 million. Nancy Pelosi, no, she didn't get that money, honestly. Oh, well, her husband made the stock trades. It wasn't technically insider trading. Okay, I mean, is that the nation that you signed up for? Oh, well, she's on the left, so it's okay. Listen, the people on the right, whoever our guys are, there's like a half dozen who people on the right think are our guys. It's like, they're not our guys any more than Nancy Pelosi is our girl. And Nancy Pelosi is not the left-wing girl either. She's her own woman. That $120 million went to her. She's not spreading that wealth around. Maxine Waters living in a mansion, or Chuck Schumer living in a mansion, or Bernie Sanders living in a mansion. It's like, these aren't... If you're on the left, and the thing is, there is a true, authentic left out there, but they're a very small left. Like, there's a free speech left out there. There's just not many of them, and eventually they're kind of going to be probably national socialists in the future, because there's no space for them on the left. And it's this funny thing about, I say that for the algorithm, I'll just say socialized nationalism. Is you think about your parents and your grandparents, depending on your age. They probably would fit into those elements of being nationalists while also favoring some socialist programs. Like, they want things for America, but the concept of a closed border was very firmly in people's minds up until about 1990, because you can take care of Americans, but you can't feed Mexico, Central America, South America, or you can't offer them taxpayer-funded healthcare, taxpayer-funded schools. There's just not enough money in the world. What happens is you just essentially bankrupt the system, which at this point I'm all for. Like team acceleration, yeah, I used to be kind of confused about that. Not anymore. There's no turning the ship around. So at this point, yeah, accelerate it, destroy the system as fast as possible. Anyway, so they got you on these platforms using that concept of detrimental reliance. So Twitter and Facebook, I'm just guessing they control at least 80% of the digital town square where the discourse is held. Your government did nothing to guarantee your free speech. Nothing in 30 years since the first message boards, I guess, were in the late 80s, but even in the early 90s, I would say that they had modern message boards. If you remember back then, it was mainly for people selling contraband and illicit meetups of the San Francisco type. So, do you have free speech? Yes, but no. You'll be doxxed, fired, kicked off social media. Then no, you don't have free speech. Oh, and a BuzzFeed or CNN article, why free speech is a bad thing, or why censorship is a good thing. It's like, I kind of feel like the media is not the media anymore. Yeah, media hasn't been the media in 30 years. I guess you could divide us into I want free expression versus I want free expression, but no hate speech, and you're not free from consequences. A private media company, billion-dollar media company, should also be able to use hacked materials, illegally obtained materials, to dox you and destroy your life. A billion-dollar bank should be able to kick you out, and a billion-dollar social media company should be able to kick you off. So people can defame you on those platforms, and you can't even defend yourself because you're not allowed on the platforms. The I want free speech crowd versus the I want free speech but crowd. The country worked because of a European social contract. No diverse groups for work for long. You know, if you have a rebuttal to that argument, I'd love to hear it. It is a planned failure. That was the goal all along. Most of the violence and problems in America is a result of forcing people who don't want to be around each other to be around each other. But it's not politically correct to say that. All the things that need to be said will get you kicked off social media, fired, and doxxed by the media. Every effort will be made to destroy your life, make you homeless, or have you self-delete, or send someone after you to take care of the problem. People, I mean, there's a lot of people who, not just the Hillary Clinton stuff, but like when you tend to go up against the puppet masters, it's more likely than not that you are going to be found in a cell with toilet paper wrapped around your neck, or have a robbery gone bad with 2 in the back of the head and nothing stolen, or that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, he threw himself off a bridge. Oh, what was he doing? I was talking about the Wayfair cabinets. Oh, seems to be a lot of people who self-delete when they go after these puppet masters. I'm not worried about it. This channel would need to be like 100 times the size, or maybe there's a certain threshold of where you cross over, and what you see is, like, as you see people get bigger, they get more conservative, which is a shame, but it is what it is. The thing is, all this stuff is like, if you don't start standing up and talking about it, it just gets worse. People need to have real, anonymous, uncensored discussions. Twitter controls, I would guess, 95% of that kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, vertical micro-blogging. Twitter's very good because it has potential for things to go viral very, very easily. Telegram is great, but it's just kind of a different, you know what I'm talking about if you use them. Thing is, shouldn't Twitter be, or all social media in America, be free speech zones? Politics is downstream from culture, but culture is controlled by like 12 companies? That's not America. That is corporate ruled America. Social media, my new superhero is black. Well, not my new superhero. To read comics now, it's like, you would have to be a sucker for punishment. Social media is not some silly thing for kids. Like, perhaps I think that's what people thought when it started in the 80s. It's literally, remember those 1200 baud modems on your Amiga? It's literally where people used to use phones back then, the phone freaks. That's a whole thing from the 70s and 80s. Yeah, it's literally where world, and you should have seen the size of the capacitors back in those days. It's a friggin' trip to look at old tech. It's literally where world leaders disseminate information. It's odd that nobody thought to make it a human right, access to free, unfettered discussion on social media. They want free, or at least taxpayer-funded, colleges and healthcare, but not guaranteed access to social media platforms? To be fair, neither the left or the right seem to care about free expression. That includes Trump and DeSantis and whoever all our other guys are, Ron Paul and all those kind of guys. It's as if both sides are controlled by someone pulling the strings. That's what I was talking about with the wings of the same bird. Here's how it works. The globalists control the media and academia. They use Saul Alinsky's Bolshevik playbook, Leon Bernstein, Trotsky's, Moses Mordecai Levy's. It's all the same Bolshevik playbook for over 100 years. And until you, let me edit this on the fly so it doesn't come off as a threat of violence. Until you address the issue, you're going to be slaves to that group of, you're going to be slaves to Bolshevism. You can't even get into it on social media. The blue check-marked hate accounts, if you want to DuckDuckGo search that, they got kicked off. The verified hate accounts got kicked off. The people who archived and screen capped blue checkmark anti-white hate, the channels, it was like a Defiant L type of channels. They archived and screen capped and this kind of hatred, folks, so it's not really important. So the people who brought your attention to this hate, they got kicked off. I forget the name of this politician who just said, he just made a deletion threat against Vladimir Putin. He said someone in Russia should do the right thing kind of thing. Something like that. The name is escaping me. He's still on Twitter. He threatened, or he stochastically made a threat of terror against the head of a foreign state that I don't think we're at war with. And even if you are at war, it's that's not one of the rules of war. You can't threaten the heads of states. There's battlefields for a reason. There's Treaty of the Hague and all this kind of stuff. Geneva Conventions, whatever. No hollow points. I forget his name. He's still on Twitter. If you make deletion threats against Trump's kids or against the Nick Sandman guys, all those people are still on Twitter. They're not kicked off Twitter, but you get the idea. Anything that goes against the narrative is. The thing is, all those verified hate accounts, the verified hate is still on Twitter, but the people who showcase the hate are kicked off, though it's obviously you can find it, on DuckDuckGo and various other engines. So pointing out who these people are turns out to be really dangerous for a lot of people. 20 years ago, you sort of lived in America. Today, you live in Twitter, Facebook, Bank of America. The Constitution is just a piece of paper without the high-trust Europeans who made it possible. You may as well burn the Constitution and form different states for different tribes of identity, which probably won't happen without a war. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys all next episode.